Our question today comes from Chris. His question is there a right time to talk about the relationship during the separation? So Chris, to answer that, yes, there's definitely a right time to start the discussion about the relationship during the separation. And we're going to cover that a little bit later. But before we go into that, guys, let's first and foremost talk about when is a bad time to talk about the relationship during a separation. It's not a good time to go and talk about it when you're looking to get an outcome, when you're trying to force an outcome. And the second is when you got big emotions, when you're either got a lot of sadness, loneliness, anxiety, or anger. That is not a good time to then bring it up. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. What else, guys? Let's open up to the rest of the ARC legends here. What else? When is another time do you guys believe is the wrong time? I can see Ronan, you go for it, brother.
Haven't you talked enough? Oh my God. It's such an interesting thing. Early on, it doesn't matter if you're a nice guy or a nice guy, but early on, when your wife drops the dreaded bomb, I think we all go into like a fight or flight mentality. You know what I mean? You're desperately trying to fix this thing. And I think a lot of us, one of the hard truths that I learned was by the time your wife or partner has come to you with wanting the separation or asking for the divorce, she's thought about it for a long time. And you end up playing a lot of catch up. So that's where that fight or flight, anxiousness, all of that stuff comes in. So you're desperately just trying to hang on. And that right there is really the absolute wrong time to say anything, because I mean, literally, it's like I look back and I'm just cringing on the shit that I did, which was it was the crying, it was the begging, it was all of it, and what happens with that is you just end up pushing her away even further, and without knowing it, because even though your intentions may really be there because you're trying to show the love and all of that stuff, it just really just shows and affirms to the partner that, yeah, I've made the right decision. I don't want this blubbering mess in front of me. You know what I mean? So I think that to Optimus's point, you got to get a grip on those emotions immediately. Number one, for yourself, because if you can't lead yourself in a situation, how do you expect to lead a conversation? You're just going to set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. I think it's like when you're coming into it like it's life or death. I think that's a big mistake that's made when it's like, this is life or death. If I don't get her back, then my life is over. That kind of reflects on the person's state of mind there. So that's definitely a really important one. And so I remember when I was working in a corporation, it's going back into my 20s, and one of my coworkers, I was looking to get a promotion, and one of the pieces of advice I got was, hey, Luke, when you go for this interview, go in there like your life depends on it, right? And I thought, this is great advice, young guy, great advice. I went into that interview and I fucking bombed big time, because I went in there like my life depended. I was fucking like sweaty palms, really uptight. And I think a lot can be taken into the same applied in when a wife checks out and during a separation. Is there's this neediness and this feeling of like my life depends on it. If I don't turn this around, my life is over. I'm nothing without her. And that will never end well. Okay.
And I'm sorry, real quick. To your point, if you notice like how you're talking, it's always you're coming from your own perspective at that point. Also, it's the me, it's I. What do I need? What do I need? So you're trying desperately to fix it for you versus the team, right?
Yeah, sure.
Your wife and all that. So I think that's something that I've learned along the way, which is I think a big lesson. You're not even listening to your partner at that point.
Yeah, you just want the outcome. You want a reconciliation no matter what the cost, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha. Falcon, what do you think, man? What do you think of the wrong time to talk about the relationship?
I mean, I totally agree with Ronan and with Optimus, I feel like, when you get hit with the bomb, you're not in a rational mind, and all the conversations really become reactive and they're really not productive at all. you know, so, you know, and you're most likely looking for validations and reassurance, and really it's not the truth. So I think, you know, like you guys both said, you got to get a hold of your emotional senses, and then, you know, in order to have these productive conversations.
Right on. We got Woodsy here is asking, what's funny is most guys want to talk about the relationship in those moments when they're in a high degree of emotions, most likely because that's what they're thinking of most in those moments. Right on. Yeah, totally. That's why emotional regulation is so important. How many guys, when their marriage got into struggles and they were in those big emotions, felt like the best thing to do was write that letter? Like, it just like, I've got this realization, let's write a letter. Let's just show of hands. Who did? Yeah, okay, right. And just for context here, so all these guys that are here, so our ARC legends have, like you can see Ronan here having a good laugh. And this is not to make fun of where you're at, but
Yeah.
he's been in the ARC system over a year and has done a lot of healing. So we can laugh about it now. When your situation, we understand, is very serious. Ronan's been there and has processed those emotions, but it really is about, you know, the healing, because when we're in those, caught up in those big emotions, we get this feeling like, oh my God, now is the time to write that letter, or, you know, maybe I'll do a mixtape. Let me go back into a teenager. And that's never going to work. It's just creepy. It's not going to work. Okay, what else, guys? One more. There's one other thing. What do you reckon, Cowboy? What do you think? What's another time that is a wrong time to talk about the relationship during a separation?
Well, we already hit on the emotions, whatnot. We haven't really talked about from her side of things when she's cold, when she's just like she's gone completely neutral, dark, if you will. You want to jump in with I think that exacerbates the issue with guys. Oh wow, I need to find a way to get her to open her doors back up or whatever, blah blah blah, and you just go in, start talking, like trying to talk about it, and you just bombard her with all these. Remember this, think about the kids, remember that good time we had here, remember this memory here, blah, and she it just kind of gets her in a point where she just gets more and more angry or more and more closed off, and she doesn't want to deal with it anymore. It just gets annoying to her. So definitely when she's still cold and distant.
Yeah, right on. I totally agree with you. And also that you know, that's when we get stuck in our head, right? We learn about that a lot in the ARC system, about being in our heart, being our authentic selves. When we're stuck in our head and we're in fear, it's like, that also seems like a good idea. You know, let's talk about the kids and the finances, because that's going to get leverage, and she's going to, like, all of a sudden go, hey, you know, this makes total logical sense, that to check back into the marriage. I never thought about that, because this wasn't totally an emotional decision. This is all, of course, now sarcasm, if it's not been clear. No. And so it's a terrible decision. That just doesn't work out at all. Now, if you guys are enjoying this conversation that we're having with our ARC legends, and you're starting to see the value of what it's like being around an incredible group of dads when you're struggling in your marriage, I want to invite you to join our free Facebook community. The link is down below. Click there and join our incredible community today. So, guys, then one other thing that I would like to cover here regarding when is the wrong time to talk about it is when also we kind of covered the negative signs, and we got our man Casanova joining the live stream. Great to see you again, Casanova. One of the times where we shouldn't go in and start talking about the relationship, we talked about the negative, is in the positive. Who thought for a moment could see that their wife was opening up? Like maybe there was a moment where she cried. We got hey Kamati, welcome brother. When she opened up, maybe got a little bit emotional. You felt like the walls were coming down, and you're like, this is the time. Did anybody have that? We get a show of hands. Anybody get that feeling? Right. Okay, we got some hands out. So this is a common thing. That's a big mistake, is a positive interaction. If you have one positive interaction with your wife, and like from months and weeks of her being cold, distant, and angry, and then all of a sudden she softens a little bit, and then you're like, you know what? Now it's the right time. It's totally not the right. It's not the right time. We will cover the right time. Stick around to the end of this video. We are going to cover the right time, and it's the only time where you want to be having a discussion with your wife during a separation regarding the relationship. We will cover that shortly. But before we go there, guys, what do you think are the common signs? So what were you guys looking for for those of you that were going through a separation? what were the things that you looked for in your wife for signs of now's the right time to talk about the relationship?
Well, if I can jump in,
You go for it, Falcon. You're such a nice guy. I love it.
so you know, in my relationship, you know, she opened up. You know, we had a moment. You know, and it was like, okay, this in that point in time, I was like, okay, this is the time I can strike and tell her how much I love her and how everything's gonna be okay. You know, but it was, you know, looking back, you know, that's just warmth, temporarily warmth. You know, it wasn't really fully commitment.
Yeah.
You know, and so I feel like, you know, it often happens, you know, when you have that little spark for connection, which happens. I mean, we've been married, you know, 10, 15, 20 years,
Sure,
you
of
know.
course.
So obviously there's going to be all these sparks throughout, you know, even through separation or through whatever you're going through. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's when, you know, it's not a good time to just lay out all the emotions at that point. You know, you got to
Right.
build up on to that.
Big time, right? And we got Woodsy saying, if she just listened to the lyrics of this song, right? Exactly, yeah. You know, then it's the time to then it's the time to strike, like you said, Falcon. Who else, guys? What other signs are you guys looking for? Those of you that were going through a separation, what were the signs you looked for your wife?
Oh, go ahead, man.
Ronan's baking and you know, writing letters. Instead, I basket wove and made hats. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, I think trying to find that little crack or where she seems like she might be connecting or, you know, giving you that little window. I think as guys, we're fixers and we want to fix the relationship right then, and we see a moment of weakness and we want to pry that crack open, right? And I think obviously that's the wrong move, because I think the take of the woman is that we're manipulating or controlling the situation, which compounds your problems ultimately, right?
Yeah.
And I did that, unfortunately, and you know, I was accused of controlling or this and that, even though I wasn't, because at the end of the day, what it boils down to is exactly where we started this conversation out, and that's our emotions. And so stepping back and taking the time to really control those emotions, gaining a foundation of where you're at and who you are, and ultimately coming back, you know, maybe with a secure way of communication when the time is right, which is nowhere near in the beginning when you're stuck in the emotions, obviously.
Right on. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to add something. Like I had in my separation, which we're still separated, but we're really great co-parents, and the story isn't, you know, finished yet, right? But there were many opportunities. There was lots of times where I, like Falcon, like had these opportunities of, oh, now it's time to strike. And something that I realized was that along the way, if you're doing this internal work for yourself, right, your spouse and partner, it may take them a while to kind of play catch up to you now. Like, so there's that whole thing, like this, you know, that's why you got to do this work for you regardless. And when the time comes for them to play catch up and when they open, it's kind of not up to you at all. You know what I mean? Like I to this day still have really great interactions with my partner, you know, and I think that is something that you kind of have to just ride out and just focus on you. Always stay focusing on you. And I think that's part of the journey of it all.
Right on. We got Casanova sharing with us here. Thanks for that, Ronan. We got Casanova sharing. After you've mastered your own emotions and communication, you're safe to talk about it. But even then, she has to fully shift towards you before talking about it. Yeah, you really do want to start feeling a shift in the dynamic there. So it's a good point, Casanova, before you talk. And we will actually cover exactly that one sign. Casanova is getting close to it there regarding when is the right time to actually discuss the relationship. So what we're hearing here is a tendency for us as men to want to kind of strike early, and we talk about the relationship sooner rather than later. So why do you think, guys, is it that most men that are going through a separation make the mistake of trying to talk about the relationship too early. So what do you think, Optimus?
Definitely, because we probably want that closure, and the reason behind why she decided to go that route.
To be clear, closure, you mean like an outcome, right?
An outcome, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, looking at it from outside, that's definitely the way I looked at it, was that I needed the closure for myself again, and not looking at it from her perspective. Because obviously, like Ronan said, she was probably checked out, months in advance, and it was already has gone through all those emotions and the decision of why she's going this route. So
that's interesting, because I didn't think about that before. As in, some of you are looking for an outcome, as in to see what are the chances of reconciling, and some of you are actually looking for then closure. That's what you're talking about, Optimus, as in it's done, so I can move on with my life. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, I think more for like the healing and the, you know what I mean? Like when I opened up and I told her, like, I joined this group to help me out, and I said, for this relationship or for the next one, it definitely caused a bit of resentment in her when I did say that comment to her. But it's definitely for, myself to find out the reasons why it all, so that if there was a chance for reconciliation, what you need to work on to get back to the relationship you had prior to, when you guys were, in that loving relationship from the beginning.
Okay. That's a good point. What about the rest of you guys? Why do you think that we tend to try and force that outcome? We're looking, to talk about the relationship sooner rather than later. Why can't we just chill and do the work that we need to do on ourselves?
I think it really boils down to fear. At least if I was going to use myself as an example, I mean, I didn't really believe in divorce. I was in it for life, and ultimately, most of us are going to be dads, right? And we care about the future of our kids and having that nuclear family, right? And so the fear of all that going away, there's a fear of finances and, what divorce brings with that. And so ultimately you want to fix it. Like most men are fixers. And so, yeah, there's a fear of losing it all. And really, your whole mindset, because like Optimus just said and Ronan said before, the wives probably checked out months, if not years before, and emotionally processed. Sure. And for us, it's just a shock. You're all out of sorts. That's why we're emotional or show ponies in the beginning, kind of. And, we had our whole mind and life planned out that this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And to be able to shift from that whole, this is my life planned out, to, oh my God, your every emotion's out of fear. You don't want to lose that. And you can't even see the other side may or may not have.
Yeah.
And just to go deeper on that fear, I think a lot of us, I have discovered early on through this journey, my independence turned into codependency in my marriage. And what I'm learning now through all of this work is to be interdependent, an individual that can work in a team, and I think that is one thing that a lot of us men don't recognize early on, that how we've lost our voices in our marriages, how we've let our wives, a lot of us, I don't care if you're a nice guy or a nice guy, like Cowboy said earlier, you're trying not to piss her off. You've been walking on eggshells for years. You gave the power up a long time ago. And that codependency is, in a lot of ways, behind that fear, is what I've discovered.
Yeah. So we're talking about the emotions a lot. But I also like what Levi said there about the belief. He said when he joined the ARC system, he didn't believe in divorce. And there's beliefs that are going to help us, which I would love to hear from you guys. What beliefs do you think actually help you so become that strong-minded, independent man with exceptional communication skills? What helps you? What helps a man that's going through a separation? What are healthy beliefs to have? Because I want to just hit on that. We had a guy just at the beginning of this week who applied for the ARC system, but we had to turn down his application because when he showed up for the call, he was very much, his belief was similar, like Levi. So just to be clear, we have nothing against religions. We're not a religion-based group. We're a group of dads. All religions are free to join. We just want to make sure we're on the same page and have the same values. And when he showed up for the application call, he was like, I just don't believe in divorce. But then he started quoting scripture to me and loving his wife like Jesus Christ. And it was clear to me very quickly that his mind was very closed to opening up to new perspective. And that would have made it impossible for him to coach. And he didn't really have the same values like we have in the group. So it didn't make sense for him to come into the program. So what do you guys think? So for me, that is a belief that doesn't help. So like religion and faith is one of our values that we have in our group. Faith, believing that life only wants the best for you, right? Not faith in regards to religion, but in life in general. We're all spiritual human beings. We believe that in our group that life wants the best for you. That's our faith, right? We have our different values. And then there's values that guys are coming in, their own values that are just not helping them. So what do you guys think for, let's say, Chris, let's bring it back to Chris before we land this plane here and actually answer the question of the right time to talk about the relationship during a separation. For what are the right types of beliefs to have for a guy that's going through a separation at the moment? Why don't we start off with Falcon? What do you think is a good, healthy belief to have that's going to help you go through this challenging time?
I think like having an open mind, believing in yourself, really, the progress that that you're gonna make, and not just clinging to that, to emotions. I'm not saying that having emotions is not right, but just clinging to them is not healthy. Part of me believes that we're here to like experience life and honor our emotions, and not be stuck and cling to them. Have that that hope, or even to clinging to what Labaya was saying. Fear, clinging to fear, that loss. That's not strength. That doesn't serve you very well at the end. And at the end of the road, whether you stay or whatever happens in your marriage, you're going to become that better individual, that better person, for yourself, just believing in yourself.
Beautiful, Falcon. Very well said. Who else? Let's get one more opinion on the right type of belief, correct kind of mindset when you're facing a separation.
Well, one thing is like to pinpoint what you said, or, what I brought up actually about being a Christian and not believing in divorce. And I think where my mind had to shift was ultimately I'm not in control of my partner and what their decisions are, right? And so you have to come to a point if they go down that road to accept that type of outcome, even if it's not what you want. And when you let go of the emotions and the fear and all that, you really focus in on yourself and having that growth mindset, maybe God has another plan for your life, because ultimately control the other person does.
Yeah, and that's the way it is when we're in pain and when we're in fear. We make our world smaller, everything constricts, and we literally try to strangle it. Trying to make get that certain outcome, which is unhealthy. Then we got Woodsy saying the sooner you fix things, the sooner the pain ends. The sooner the closure, the sooner the pain ends. Very selfish way of thinking. I hear what you're saying, Woodsy, but I think it's when you're in pain and you're in fear and anxiety, this is a total natural response to just as human beings, we want to get out of pain and suffering as quick as possible. What people, a lot of men, and so you guys that join the program and guys that are watching this video, the way to shift out of that is rather than seeing this as a pain, and so it is suffering and it's not nice and nobody wants this for you. We are sorry that you're going through the separation, but see it as there's something to grow out of this, something to be gained. It's an opportunity to grow. And these guys right in front of you on the screen are a wonderful example of that. They've hit the exact same hard times as you. They didn't go down and feel like victims. They stepped up, and this is why they're able to show up and give incredible advice to the community and to be able to serve other men just like themselves. So, we need to have a little shift there. So let's land this plane here, guys, and let's give the answer to Chris. Chris, so you're asked, is the right time to ask or to talk about the relationship during a separation? The answer is yes, and it's very simple. The right time when you want to talk about the relationship is only when you start to feel sexual tension building between you and your wife. Okay, so you're going to feel her come towards you. You're going to feel her being flirtatious, maybe hugging you more, touching. You're going to notice with the way she's looking at you. You're going to feel that sexual tension building. You're going to really feel it. And it's at that point that you want to talk about it. You don't want to do it earlier where, you know, there's just a little bit of talking, or you think, you know, if she's let her guard down, that's when to do it. No, you want to do it when there's sexual tension, because at that point there's fun and flirtation. It means emotional safety's been rebuilt. She's sharing more. It's at that point that you want to have that conversation with her. Now, the problem is most men find it very difficult to actually identify where they're at in their marriage. So we've created a video to help you identify what phase you're in your marriage during a separation. It's the 4 phases of a marriage on the road to reconciliation. You want to watch that next video coming up now.